Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our next edition of Tiger Talks, which is featuring our legendary alumni. We are so happy to have these folks with us this evening and looking forward to hearing them share their stories. Today is also Giving Day at the college. It's been a very exciting day on campus, and we encourage you to make your gift, make your donation to Georgetown College. We have so many great challenges going on. Feel free to check those out at gogc.me/giving day to learn more about those. Before we get further into it, I do want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Olivia Coleman. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations here at Georgetown College. I'm also a 2015 GC alumna, and I am so blessed to have been a part of the GC journey, the GC experience, but I'm even more blessed to be here with these legendary alum who I know you all are also looking forward to hearing more about them and their stories. Before we get into introductions, I do want to take a moment to take a brief moment of silence in remembrance of Coach Bob Davis. He was a legendary coach here at Georgetown and just moved the college forward in so many ways. And if you all will please join me in taking a moment of silence for Coach Davis. Thank you. We will now get into introductions of our legendary alumni. And I want to start with Karen Rich. So Karen, if you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and yeah, we're looking forward to hearing more about you.
Okay. It's nice to be here. First of all, an honor to be asked to be on this talk. I am Karen Rich. I graduated from Georgetown in 93 and in 96, actually 97, with my master's in elementary education. And so that is my profession as when I graduated. And now I am I guess I call it my CEO of Rich Enterprises, which is also known as a stay-at-home mom to 3 children. And I'm married to Sean. And he also graduated from Georgetown in 94. And our children, we have one that's Madeline, a senior at UK Nursing School. Abby is a current student at Georgetown. She's a sophomore. And our youngest is a sophomore, Camden, at Elizabethtown High School.
Thank you. Charlotte?
Hi, I'm Charlotte Elder. I graduated in 1996 from Georgetown. I was a sociology major, and I teach at Western Kentucky University now down here in Bowling Green, Kentucky. Been here 22 years. It's hard to believe because I'm only 24 years old, so it's crazy how that worked out. But feel very honored to be here tonight and humbled to be asked to talk about my time at Georgetown. It was absolutely foundational and transformative for me. I have a senior in high school, and we're talking about where she wants to go, and my fingers are just crossed, and my prayer is that she finds a place that does for her what Georgetown did for me. So I consider it an honor to be able to share in this moment with all of you guys. So thank you.
Bruce?
Yes, I'm Bruce Mcnorton. I live in Daytona Beach, Florida, but like I said, I'm up here in Michigan right now. My daughter's expecting a baby here any day. But I came to Georgetown in 1977, graduated in 1981 with a degree in social work and a minor in physical education. I played football there at Georgetown. In 1982, I was drafted by the Detroit Lions in the 4th round from Georgetown. I went to Detroit, played in Detroit for nine years. Then I left there and went to Miami with the Dolphins for a year. So I had a 10-year career playing professional football. And then I coached high school football in Pontiac, Michigan for 5 years. And that was really good. And then I got an offer and got a job with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the personnel department. And I've been with them now. This is going on, I think, the 21st year with the Steelers. So, that is what I'm doing right now. And I'm enjoying it, but looking forward to retiring so I can get back to some more Georgetown football games.
Thank you. Michelle?
Well, I'm humbled to be here today. I think when you say legendary, I'm not sure if that means old or something else, Olivia, so I'm going to try to figure that out. But to follow Bruce, I'm not as legendary as he is for sure. Thank you for having me. I'm Michelle Seltzer-Pedigo. I graduated from Georgetown in 1990 with a double major in business and English, a minor in biology, and a teaching certificate. If you listen to all those, you know pretty quickly I had no idea what I really wanted to do, and I liked a lot of things. What that turned into is I was in education for 11 years, and then I actually got recruited out of education into the insurance industry. And I tell people, Bruce, I'm still a coach. I coach people every day and still teach. But I took those skills into the insurance industry, where I'm one of 3 regional vice presidents for Mass Mutual, and am responsible for a third of the sales and distribution for them. We currently have our home in Kentucky with the family beef cattle business, and we also spend a lot of time in Nashville, where a couple of our daughters are in college as well. We are blessed. I'm blessed to have found a man who will stay married to me for 28 years, and we have been fortunate and blessed to have 4 wonderful daughters. 3 who were strong high school athletes, and 1 who is now playing in college. So I just look forward to spending time with fellow Georgetonians here for a little bit. I'm also a member of the Board of Trustees for Georgetown, and just really am excited about where the college is going, and am excited about what it is and is going to do for our future. So Olivia, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Raphael?
Good evening once again, and I want to say thank you, Olivia, for considering me to be a legendary alumni. I don't think I have enough time on the books to be considered a legendary, but I'm a alumni. I graduated May 14, 2011. I'm a native of Houston, Texas, the great United State of Texas, as we call it. Bachelor's of Sociological Studies. Once I left Georgetown with that degree, that was a transformative year. I traveled with my father on the road for 9 months. And that's when I really took ministry seriously, and fully committed to ministry. Went to seminary, Baylor University, True Theological Seminary. And over the past 4 years solid, I've been here with my father, weathering this storm that we've been living in this virtual space. And as of January 26th, it makes 1 year that I was called into the preaching ministry. So now it's full-time ministry. And that's really the current space that we're in right now, looking at the PhD work in the near future. So thank you again for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to extend my thanks again to you all for being willing and available to hop on this Tiger Talk series. And one thing that President Jones always says that I really appreciate is that at Georgetown College, we offer a championship level education of the heart and mind. And in my own interpretation of his words, I take that to mean that Georgetown College produces greatness. When I think about greatness, I think about these five folks that we have here today. And while we have produced so many great alum, you all were selected for a special purpose. Karen, you said you're the CEO of Rich Enterprises, AKA Mom. You have a daughter here at Georgetown. That's a beautiful story. Charlotte, you're a communications professor at a university, and you're also a consistent and dynamic member of our alumni board. Bruce, you had a great athletic career here at Georgetown, went on and played professional football, and now you coach, and I think that's incredible. Michelle, what you and your husband have done professionally, and the fact that you do serve as a member of our board is incredible. And Ralph, you talked about not having enough stats when it comes to years. when it comes to being considered a legendary alum, but you were the first Bishop Scholar to come to Georgetown. And I think that just kind of speaks in of itself. So you all were selected for a purpose, and we're looking forward to having more sessions such as these. But again, I'm just so thankful to have you all with us here today. And with that being said, we will get into the questions. My first question is, I want to do a quick check-in. I know we briefly talked about COVID and how things have changed a little bit, but how are you doing? And how have you been since the pandemic? How has life been? And Charlotte, I'll start with you.
Well, wow, that's a big question. Being in academia, it's been really challenging. It completely changed how I teach. I started trying to, and I guess it sounds like a lot of you all are either have children in academics, in school, or are there yourselves. But we went to a hybrid model in my courses, and if you're not familiar, for me that meant I met with some of my students one day and some of them another day, and we tried all different kinds of methods and madness to try and make it work. And it's been really, really challenging. I think for me personally, it's funny you asked that question. I had a student that I had in the spring, so 365 days ago when all this kind of started. She reached out to me today and asked me how I was. I had sent an email to all of my students that I had 365 days ago. And I said, how are you? It's been a year. And when I thought we were going on spring break and we never came back, and I said, how are you? I never got to see you again. How are you doing? And she said, well, how are you doing? And I said, this has been tough because the way that I teach is very interactive. It's very personal. We do a lot of discussion. It's not very lecture based. And I miss my students. And it's been really hard for me personally. I ran into my former department head in the grocery store, and mask and all, I broke down. I just started crying. And I said, I've never felt so lost as a professional in my whole life, because I am handicapped to do what I love to do. And she just kind of looked at me as somebody who doesn't normally cry that much, and more or less in a grocery store. And I don't think she'd ever seen that. And I just said, I can't do the things that I love to do, and teach in the ways that I know to teach. And that's to connect with my students. And so I've had to reinvent everything that I've been doing for 20 something years. And we always reinvent all the time. We come up with better ways and more creative ways to do things. We fix the things we're not doing well, and we learn new ways to do things. But this was, I know probably everybody in here, you're trying to figure out in an emergency mode how to reinvent, rather than, let's really ponder and think and research. And it was tough. It was tough. So I give kudos to Georgetown. I watched from Western the creative ways that they were moving classrooms outside with the tents and the benches. And I watched as faculty were out there building and painting. And I was like, man, that's so creative. And I just loved it. So, but it was challenging. It was challenging. And I'm excited to see when I get to breathe a little bit over the summer when classes are not in session, and take what I had to do emergency mode and figure out how it's going to change me for the future. Because I think that anytime there's a crisis, you're wasting the crisis if you don't become better on the flip side. So I'm really looking forward to becoming a better professor for the future, for whoever I have in the fall and moving forward. So it's been really tough, and but I'll be better for it, and my students will be hopefully the recipients of a better experience for it. So tag somebody else's in.
Thank you. Bruce?
Well, it's been tough too in my profession, because we do a lot of traveling, and when the pandemic hit, then we were called off the road. We did a lot of stuff virtual. We draft meetings. We're usually in Pittsburgh, and we're in the room and we're kind of going over things, and we get a chance to discuss. Well, last year we had to start doing it virtually, and we tried to make it work. It was difficult. It was an adjustment for all of us. we didn't get a chance to go to we do like pro days after the combine. And as a matter of fact, they pulled us off the road right after the NFL combine at the end of February. And so then we had to start doing things, like I said, virtually. A lot of kids this past year probably missed opportunities to get drafted or get an opportunity in the NFL because they didn't have a chance to have that pro day. They didn't have a chance to get a chance to be in front of pro scouts, in person and run. So we had to go by information that we picked up by looking at film, talking to them on the phones and those types of things. So that was different. And, when we did the draft, I was at home. I'm usually in the draft room, but I was at home sitting there, on a Zoom call like this. And, we were discussing, players that we were looking at, players that we might have wanted to draft. So it was it was just different. It was a different atmosphere. And then we roll around into the college season and there was so much uncertainty there to where, I'm usually in the Midwest. I'm usually doing most of the Big Ten schools. Well, this year, because I was in Florida and I could drive to some of the schools, I did most of the Florida schools this year, which was not an issue for me. I enjoyed it, but it just was an adjustment that we had to make. And we're actually still making adjustments now. We're on pace right now to say, hey, we're thinking that, we may have a hold on this pandemic and we can come in for the draft, but those things are up in the air. I don't know. I can't remember. I done had at least 5 or 6 COVID tests because of me getting ready to travel somewhere to go out. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I was supposed to be going to Illinois, but that got called off. And so, so it's just been some uncertainty. I've been 20 years doing it one way, and now all of a sudden, it's more at home, more on the computer, and I'm more of a hands-on person. I like to be there. I like to see the guys work out and see them in person. But now, last year we had some players we drafted that we never really saw in person, but we just took it on a whim and drafted those guys. So, I mean, this pandemic, it was something at first that we didn't realize how bad it could be and what it really was. And when it started to materialize more and more, we found out. And, myself being in that age group of, I could, over 60 years old now, I have to be careful. And I know I didn't speak on this, but I do have 3 kids, and my daughter, she has a PhD and she works in DC for the FDA. So she keeps me in line. And then my daughter here in Michigan, she's a mom. And then I have a son too, Bruce Jr., that, he played college football. Matter of fact, he played for Coach Donnelly, who used to be the head coach there at Georgetown. He played for him over at St. Francis. So, that's something about my kids. And that's another thing is coming up here, I've been up here about a month now. I hadn't seen my kids in over a year, so, this pandemic, it not only affects the way we work, but it also to our families. So I'm just hoping and praying that, we can get through this thing here and we can get back to some type of normalcy.
Michelle?
I can appreciate each of them speaking to how different it was. And I think that's probably, we still can't really bring a sense of semblance. I mean, it's been a year. I have also really been thankful. Our twins, the babies of our 4, headed off to college. And so their first year, Bailey was playing basketball at Campbellsville and Mallory went away to Samford. They are both very driven. Mallory was valedictorian of her class, 34 ACT, you name it, the perfect child. Started facing anorexia. And she tells this story now, so I'm not telling anything out of school, in October. And had the pandemic not occurred, I, as her mother, probably, I could have figured it out, but I had the time to deal with that disease on a weekly basis the way I needed to deal with it, because like Bruce being I was always on the road, not always, I was on the road typically Tuesday to Thursday, most weeks, for my job. And we as a family learned how to do that, and we did it well. And I thought, when my kids go away to school, that's going to be easier for me to travel, because I had a nanny from 2 on, because I didn't want to worry that they were going to worry if somebody was going to pick them up. We figured that into our home budget, and that's the way we did business from the time they were 2 on when I went on the road. But when I looked back, I can truly thank the Lord that I had the time, because she is about to go in full remission of that disease, because we were able to work on that as a family. And in addition to that, the 3 of the 4 daughters came home from college, and we were all here. And that was like 3 months that this mama got back with her kids that I would have never had. So yes, there were challenging times. Like everyone on this phone, I had to learn how to do my job different, lots of things differently. And yet I can truly look back and know that there were some real blessings for our family.
Thank you. Ralph?
Well, one thing I could say about this worldwide pandemic is heightened the intentionality, because all of our brothers and sisters who've spoken before me, it speaks of how it's affected us physically, psychologically, but then on the spiritual aspect, it has been hard, man. I'll be completely honest. I'm tired of preaching to empty seats. It's been rough because that's different than standing in a pulpit and you're standing out looking at 4,200 seats empty. 13 months now. And we don't speak about that because we have to be the moral voice. We have to be those to uplift our brothers and sisters in the body of Christ. But it's hard to see people that have been with you for 33 years now perishing, and you can't properly funeralize them. So there has to be an intentionality with reaching out to them, encouraging them, and not being able to see them, hug them on a week-to-week basis. So now, it has been rough, but it's been encouraging to hear how encouraged our brothers and sisters in the body have been when you call and reach out to them, because we wouldn't speak on it, but the first few months was rough because we all thought it was going to be like 3 or 4 months and we'd be back. But when you got to the summer, I told them, I said, no joke, I have watched the seasons change. I said, and we are in the same space, like we've been in the time capsule. But there's no complaint, but really it's about being intentional when we get back to some form of normalcy. Because I said to Dr. Jewel London, I said, how are we to sing a song in a strange land? I said, what do you do when the strange has become familiar and the familiar has become strange? So now we have to live out what, this faith that we have. So, we're all in a unique, strange time. And I know we're tired of talking to the screens, but this is how we're going to push through this unique time, is encouraging one another and being intentional about having the common touch, even if it's not physically.
Amen. Great. Thank you, Ralph. Karen?
I think he's right. Intentional is a good word. I think as we reflect and look back, yes, as a mom, I gained some extra kiddos along the way. And yes, there were days of struggles, but again, like Michelle said, a true blessing to have those. I would have never had that opportunity with my senior or my sophomore in college. But intentional, as a mom, I think I grew and made it a priority to expand my faith and grow deeper with my relationship with Jesus. I become a better mom, a better wife, all that when that's in line. And then I also chose to focus on my nutrition and my health. I was not in a good place before, and I've tried to commit to that this year, and I've seen great gains, and I feel absolutely amazing. So it's been a blessing.
Thank you. All right. So my next question. What brought you to Georgetown College? What brought you to Georgetown College? Michelle, I'm going to start with you.
So this kind of speaks to, like, you just never know. And God is usually in everything. I think about all the time how Georgetown College expanded the way I think. Like I get emotional still. thinking about the impact that Georgetown had on my life and the ability that created for me to have impact on others, and how just like it just happened that my associational missionary in Little Fountain Run, Kentucky said, "Hey, I want to go show you Georgetown College." Now, no offense, Charlotte, but Western was too close and it was too big in my eyes. I wanted to go somewhere small. My parents thought I was crazy they were both graduates of Western, and it was, larger and than Georgetown. It had the big buildings and everything. So when they went on Georgetown campus, they were like, "What?" But literally, Bob Bottoms drove me to Georgetown, he and his wife, just me, and said, "Let's go see it on I think we drove up on a Saturday, maybe a school day." And I walked on campus and I said, "This is where I'm going." And the other thing that helped with that was, at the time I thought I was going to be a pharmacy major, and I wanted to do pre-pharm. And Georgetown was the only small liberal arts school in Kentucky that had that program at the time. So there you have it. That's how I landed there.
Bruce.
Okay, well, how I got to Georgetown from Florida was really, I don't know, it's kind of like, seemed like my whole career has been kind of like, it just happens to happen. But a guy who was actually a grad assistant at Georgetown with football was down in Daytona Beach during spring break. And he had a friend that coached at a neighboring high school. And so while he was down there at spring break, he decided he would go look at a few players, and this guy had a couple of players on his team that he thought, could go to Georgetown and play. So the guy, he goes over to the school, Seabreeze High School, and he's looking at film and talking about some of those players, and he looks and he sees, we played against them, and he looks over and he says, "Well, who's that dude, that guy over there on that other team?" And he goes, and the guy says, he's a pretty good player for him, but I don't know if he's getting recruited by anybody, anything like that. So I said, "Well, where's the school?" So anyway, he comes over to my school and comes in, and, we weren't having a lot of scouts or recruiters coming in looking at people. And I had no offers of, scholarships or anything like that. So when he came on over there, he looked at some film and he said, "Hey, you know what? I think I might be able to see what I can do. I'm gonna take this film back with me to Georgetown." And so anyway, he came back to Georgetown and they kind of looked at the film, and, and like signing date was like in, I think like February or something like that. And, this was like in March for spring break. And so in May, at the end of May, Georgetown, they got in contact with me and they said, "Well, we can't give you a full scholarship, but we can give you a half scholarship." And I was just trying to get to school. I wanted to go to school and get a good education, but I also wanted to play football. So that was my opportunity. So, the rest was history. I came on up to Georgetown and, and that's how I got there. But it wasn't, like on a red carpet.
Mm-hmm. Ralph.
Well, Georgetown was brought to me. I was coming back from Memphis, Tennessee. I was staying with my cousin, whose name is also on the pillar of the LRC, David Boyle Jr. I was coming home. I was actually at a community college at that time because there's a statewide test in Texas called the tax test. And really, it's amazing because I had a 3.5 GPA, but I was having problems passing the algebra portion of that test, which restricts you from graduating. So Dr. Crouch came to my mother and father's house while I was out of town. And when I got home, I saw this pennon on my bed. I said, "What's this?" I said, "I'm going to Morehouse." I was headed to Atlanta. Now I wanted to follow my brother's footsteps, great school. And it was just amazing. It was a God move because when I reached out to Morehouse, I was accepted, but they wanted me to wait another semester. And at that time, at 19, you think 20 years old is so old. And I was like, I'm not waiting till I'm 20 years old to be a freshman. And we went to the college campus, all three of us. We walked the campus, and we made a joint decision, all three of us. And we said, we're gonna come to this school. We're gonna start. We're gonna finish together. And that really was what it was. And it it was some kind of experience because out of the three of us, none of us had been to Kentucky. And that was always a debate between us and them because we considered we were from the real South, but we never considered Kentucky the real South. So that was always the when you speak of like Brother Bruce, Florida, we call Florida the island, so we think of Texas as the third coast. But we were like, this is not the South. I say it just snowed 14 inches of snow the first winter. So it was always a running joke, but it was definitely an experience, a life-changing experience. So.
Karen.
Well, I guess I'm considered a townie because I'm originally from Georgetown. And honestly, what attracted me to Georgetown, I had a long history of family who went to Georgetown. My mom worked through several presidents at Georgetown. And so it was home before I even got there, I feel like, because I knew so much about it. But probably what attracted it to me was the fact that it was small. They emphasized their Christian principles and ideals and lived those. And it was not unheard. Everyone knew that the teacher education program at Georgetown was top notch. And to this day, it's still top notch. And I think that's what drew me there because that's what was my chosen profession. And I felt like it was the place for me. And it's kind of neat to see that now with one of my daughters, being able to share that experience with her as well.
Charlotte.
I found Georgetown by accident. Actually, I had checked out at college. Finding a college before the internet was entirely different, and I know some of y'all can relate. There used to be a magazine that came out. I don't know what it was called, and like colleges had ads in it, and that was the only way you knew, or by word of mouth, that a college existed. I don't know if I never saw. I don't know how Georgetown never got on my radar, but it didn't. And so I was up in northern Indiana visiting some schools, Taylor and blah blah blah. We were coming down, and we were driving down 65, and my dad said, "Well, there's something called Georgetown." And we're like, okay. And I had been to like every school in Tennessee and all over Kentucky and up through Indiana. And my dad went to Cedarville in Ohio. We'd been there. And so right off the exit, it was a rainy February. It was freezing. We had an appointment with anybody. We found the campus without GPS or Google Maps or anything. And I stepped on campus and I went, this is it. This is it. I had no idea how much it was, what the majors were. I didn't know anything. We walked around for a while, and I just knew that this was it. And before we left, we went in the student center, and there is a picture of my great grandfather, Dr. Porter, who was a trustee there, and I had no idea. Which is Porter Memorial in Lexington, Kentucky, and blah blah blah. I had no idea, but about an hour after on campus, and I just knew at that time that was going to be my home, and knew very little, didn't meet with anyone or talk with anyone. I just felt like it was home. And then as we were leaving, went to, get a soda out of the machine and use the facilities, and there was this picture, and I thought, well, this was just meant to be, wasn't it? And never regretted a second of it, and I'm grateful for that decision every day. So that's my little crazy story. Pre-internet, how you find a college.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Our next question is, what do you consider to be your greatest success during your time as a student at Georgetown College? And Bruce, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, I would say that the greatest success from Georgetown was truly the education that I received, and then the experiences I received, from as little as the first time ever seeing snow from Florida, but also too, at the time that I came to Georgetown, there were, I was talking to Olivia earlier, there were only like 17 people of color that was there on the whole campus. And so, it was one of those things that we got to, it was a kind of like a cultural shock for me coming to Georgetown. But I tell you, some of the professors there made it so much more easier for us. the coaches there. We got a chance to really, truly learn about other people and other things that people like to do. We didn't know anything about what a snowbird was. We did not know things about, we didn't have winter clothes like we did. But like they had a dean there, Dr. Apple, and he looked out for me, I know, because I didn't have a winter coat. And he was able to provide me with a winter coat because I was walking around there with, about 3, 4 coats, little summer coats from Florida. And he gave me those things. But the professors there at Georgetown at the time, I tell you, they really and truly encouraged us as kids at the time of color to really excel. And and the dream came true for me to get my degree, and for my mother to be able to come, and my father didn't come to graduation, but my mother was able to come to Georgetown. And well, I graduated in 81, but we walked in 82, but she was able to come and see me, graduate. And I was not the first of my family to graduate, but I was the first of my family to leave home and to go away, and to be that far away to my mother rode the bus to Georgetown to see me play games. And I think that was something that built me as a man, to know about diversity, to know about different cultures, to know about different people. In Georgetown was the first time I met someone, a teammate of mine, who actually said he was from Kentucky and he had never saw a Black person in person in his life, only on TV. So it was like, wow, it was something hard to fathom. But Georgetown has always been dear to me. I've always, I always talk about Georgetown, and me going when I played in the NFL. I used to mess with those dudes at the University of Kentucky and those bigger schools. I was like, man, Georgetown, man, I think we can hang with you guys, And so Georgetown has always been really, really good. And because I'm not home, if I was home, I'd have my Georgetown stuff on. But I'm not home, so I don't have my Georgetown stuff on. But like I said, I think that the culture, the diversity, the things that Georgetown kind of introduced me to, and the friends that I accumulated there and I got now that are still friends, that we still, I don't do so much of the social media thing, but I do stay in contact with some of those guys and everything like that. So it brought some long-lasting friendships, and I truly thank God that my life wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for Georgetown.
Charlotte.
Oh my, that's a tough question, because there's lots of things that I think we probably could all talk about. And Dr. Apple, he's legendary. I know he did one of the Tiger Talks as well, and he could be his own Tiger Talk. All kinds of stories. And I could probably spend an hour talking about him, and I wasn't even a history major. I had him for one class, and if I had him as a freshman, I might have been a history major. And I think about him almost every day when I teach, because he didn't teach history from a memorization perspective. He taught it from a why perspective. And I think about that all the time when I teach. I don't care if you can memorize something, but can you tell me why? Right? Can you understand the why? And he just inspired that. You just couldn't stop listening to him. He was incredible. But one of my favorite successes at Georgetown, I can forever about how the professors changed who I am. I wouldn't be a shell of who I am had they not. Dr. Apple, Dr. Reddit, Dr. LaRue, Margaret Reynolds, I could go on and on, even the ones that I didn't do very well in their classes. But I was the speaker pro tem, which was the vice president of student government, which is a funny story because I didn't want to be on student government. I had no desire. I wasn't in high school. I didn't really know what the student government did. But my band director, which I was not a music major either, signed me up for it. And I just thought, well, if I don't hang any posters, nobody will vote for me. And somehow I won. Dang it. So then I was the vice president, and to do something, I had to do a campus-wide service project. And so
I went back to my band director, Dr. LaRue. If you know him, you understand that that's how he operates. And I said, listen, you got me into this mess. So what are we going to do? And he said, well, do you know Habitat? And I said, I love Habitat. This is a point I'm getting to. So Labor Day, we decided to build a house in a weekend. And we went to Habitat months before, and we said, if you get the foundation done, we think we can build a house in a weekend, and we'll call it a blitz, because I eat, sleep, and breathe football. My biggest regret in life is not having a whole football team of little boys of my own, and or being able to play football. And so we decided we were going to have a blitz, and we were going to build a house in a weekend. If they could get the foundation poured, we were going to put the walls, the roof, and everything on. And so we had a rotating 24-hour, well, it was actually 72 hours, day in and day out. We had a little hardware store come in with lights that we worked around the clock. And we had teams of faculty working next to the basketball team, next to the volleyball team, next to the RAs. We had Dr. Crouch out there with the cafeteria people. We had we had Captain Donovan out there and Lester Abney. I don't know if you remember some of those names, but they were all hammering and sawing, and we did it. And that was one of the most beautiful moments for me, was being able to really just facilitate. All I did was facilitate it. It was the campus who built it. And I still have that picture hanging in my office of a bunch of us out there with hammers. And it's just, it just takes one little spark, and it's beautiful what people can do. And I think that just really inspired me, and I kind of approach a lot of things that way. I like to be that little spark and get something started, and then everybody else can just make it happen. And I'm forever grateful for him, because I never would have stepped out of that box. And he did that for me in lots of ways. And I probably text him, I don't know how many times, whenever I have big questions or whatever. And he was that person for me that just really pushed my boat out into the ocean and said, go, you need to go farther than what you think that you can do. And so it was a success, not really for me, but I think that a lot of people saw it was something that hadn't been done before. I don't know if they still do it, but I hope they do. So.
Karen.
I guess if I reflect on success stories, it would be surviving the teacher education program under Dr. Paulsgrove. So shout out to all those education majors out there who survived under him, right,
Yep.
Michelle? But no, getting my degree and then coming back later, my master's degree, and just receiving the valuable education from Georgetown allowed me to be a competent, even as a first-year teacher, to come into the classroom, because back then it was a rarity, and Georgetown was known for lots of observation hours before you actually got into the classroom. And that is what I've always admired, and I think it's so important. And not only just the education and all the wonderful professors that take the time for you to grow you in your field and as an individual person, but also getting involved in campus activities. I was involved in Greek life while I was there. So that allowed me to have leadership opportunities that, took me to a different level that I didn't know was possible. And you got to work as a team, all those life skills that you learn that are good for you no matter what career path you choose. And so those are some of the success stories. It's people helping people, working together to make it all work out for everybody, for the common good.
Yeah.
Well, I have two. That's a lot when it comes to Georgetown, because it was just, it kicked off with immediacy. So one greatest accomplishment would have to be what I felt was one of my greatest attempts, but greatest failures while I was there. That was the attempt to create Greek life. And I always told them that it was never for African Americans, it was erected by African Americans. I said, but it was for the love of all mankind. But I don't think that Georgetown at that time, even in the mid 2000s, was ready for that. But it's a blessing to see young brothers and sisters of Kappa, KA Psi Phi Nu Pi, Zetas are taking care of business. because it really was a mantle that I laid down that you all picked up and carried on. So that's really one of my greatest accomplishments that I wasn't really there to experience. But when you're in a leadership position, you almost never get a chance to endure the fruit that you plant.
Mhm.
So when you're in leadership, Dr. King helps us with that. You almost never get a chance to do that. But just to see you all on campus, it's a blessing to me. But I think the greatest moment for me was the eve of the baccalaureate service, our commencement service rather, May 13th, 2011. My father preached that service that night in the chapel. And that really blew the minds of classmates, because men and women that you've been in class with for 4 years who've never spoken to you and you've never spoken to them, it broke a racial barrier that night. Because when you're in sociological studies, you're reading Emile Durkheim, Karl Marx, and these are great sociologists, but they're all Caucasian. So that night when Dr. West preached, brothers and sisters had to understand that African Americans can think. And I had one classmate turn around at me and said, "He does this every Sunday?" I said, "Every Sunday." I said, and he's been doing it every Sunday for 38 years. So it was really, I mean, we don't like to talk about it, but there's a lot of race for reconciliation that has to take place on Georgetown's campus, because if you read the history, it's there in your face. You know, so it was a great accomplishment as we were leaving out of the door to see a barrier be shattered that night.
Michelle.
Wow, that's I can't top that one. That's really cool. And you know, I was really excited this year too, and when we had the inclusion and kindness focus group work even beyond that work. That being, and President Jones commissioned that. But that being said, I would just echo what everybody said about the coolest thing for me on Georgetown's campus was I went there as I had been successful, a pretty successful high school student athlete that chose not to play anything at Georgetown. But also a successful student, a big fish in a small pond. But I knew that I was in a small pond. I also had not, I was not that white person who'd never seen Black people. I mean, but I did not know diversity. I did not know the arts. I did not know to appreciate them. I did not know to think broadly and to learn to be a creative thinker, to be inclusive. I just hadn't been exposed to that, you know. I had been raised by wonderful parents who taught me a work ethic second to none. I knew I was smart. I knew I could do a lot of things. And the adults at Georgetown, from Dr. Allen, who wrote on my first paper I wrote in my class, "You write really well. Have you ever thought about being an English major?" To Dr. Paulsgrove, who pushed me in education. To Dr. Peel, who said, "I think you should be a Phi Beta Lambda state officer." And I went on to run for national office. To, you know, Dr. Murray, who was the business professor, who had been a successful businessman. To Coach, who was the boys basketball coach. I look back, I tell the story to the girls. I was the student rep on the admissions exception committee. And so was the coach. Well, I look back and I'm like, I know why he was there, because it was important that we gave people an opportunity to play. I learned, like, I look back at that as an adult now, and I totally get it. So there's so many things that happened at Georgetown that taught me to go like this and taught me to be adaptive, that I've used almost every week, if not day, since I left the campus. And I've wanted that as a parent of my children's college experience. And I know I tried to get them all to go to Georgetown, and we didn't have good enough buildings was one of the things. So that's why I want everybody to give today, give money so we can get buildings. But I wanted that for them, because I just believe that's so important for, to everybody's point here, we're in an ever-changing world, and Georgetown taught me to be able to thrive in that type of world.
Very good. Thank you. So a narrative that I heard from all those answers were relationships, being able to consider someone else's lifestyle other than your own, right? Diversity and inclusion, perseverance. Those are just some common things that I heard from those answers, and I think those are elements of what make the Georgetown College experience so unique, right? So thank you all for those tremendous answers. We are coming up on time, so I want to make sure that I ask this question. If you can keep it to 2 minutes or less, that would be great. But I would like to ask each panelist, what is their favorite Georgetown College story? This could be a funny story, it could be a pivotal, life-changing story, but what is your favorite Georgetown College story, of course, that you feel comfortable in sharing? And I don't know if someone wants to go first, but I can definitely call on some folks. Charlotte, you look like you're thinking about something, so I'm gonna go with you first.
I don't know that I have a story. There were so many. I really don't know that I can narrow it down, especially not in 2 minutes. I really don't. So I'm gonna give you 2 or 3 in under 2 minutes.
Okay.
So again, before cell phones, I was in the band. And so we went to support the basketball team in the national tournament, and we stopped in St. Louis because everything was educational with Dr. Pete. I think that was a budgetary thing, or actually it's his personality. So we went up in the arch in St. Louis, and he stayed in the top, and we all went down on the ground. And he took pictures back before we had cell phones, and we were spelling out words. And so we spelled out GER and we spelled out GC, of course, without, so we would just be like, do you think he's got it? I don't know. And then we would jump around. Now, I still have those pictures, and that was just so fun. I loved that minute. I remember sitting on the steps of my sorority house the night I was helping lead freshman orientation, and I sat there with my friend Tim Hawley the night before my senior year kind of started, and we sat there in the cool air of August, and he said, we're going to have to capture every minute of this as a memory, because we both knew that we would never have this time again in our lives. We knew how special those 4 years were. And I'll never, and that conversation, I relive it so many times in my head, and still count on him today. And as a dear friend, all the way in Delaware, and still count on him as a friend. And I still remember when I met him at freshman orientation 4 years prior, in behind Night Hall, we were all playing volleyball, soccer, hall soccer, in Night Hall, pranking the guys at the PHA house. We used to prank them and call them and tell them they won free pizza, and they'd all come running downstairs, and we'd be laughing because they hadn't. I mean, I can't even. Margaret Reynolds calling me in my dorm room and telling me to come over. I didn't know what I had done, but I marched all the way down to the bottom of Anderson Hall, and she sat me down in the chair, and in her deep voice, she said, "That guy you're dating, you shouldn't be." I mean, I can't tell you the fact that my teacher, that I wasn't even one of her, I wasn't her major, but she knew me, and she knew he's a great guy, but we weren't, she paid attention. Teachers paid attention to who you were, and you were more than a number. You were more than a name, and they invested in you. And Happy, Michelle, you were talking about Happy, and I took fencing with Happy. He needed, I found out later, he needed a female because he had the whole basketball team in his class, and he had to have a female for some rule. I'm sure Title IX, I don't know. And so he asked me to take fencing. I was like, okay. I just, there were so many memories, and I know that's maybe one of the questions that we probably should answer. I give because I want, if it's not going to be my kids, I want every student that comes to that campus or wants to come to that campus to have the opportunity.
And I wish I could give enough that my dollars would pay for somebody's entire experience. I can't, because I teach at a state school, and I wish I could, but all of our dollars together can. And you're right, the buildings are not what attracts, these 17, 18-year-olds. It's not. I've toured the campuses as well, and they don't have all the glitz and the glam. And unfortunately, a lot of these kids can't see past that. They don't hear these stories, and they watch the Instagrams and they watch the YouTubes, and that's what my kids do, is they watch all the TikToks and they go, that doesn't look like what I see at these other schools. And they don't hear these stories, but all of our dollars can, when we all put our dollars in the pot. When we all work at an hour on the house, it gets built. When we all put our dollars in the pot, the buildings get built, and the stories become louder and the roars become louder. They say that you can hear a tiger's roar for miles and miles and miles, and when all the tigers roar, then you really hear it, and those dollars become big amounts, and those alumni giving percentages, they matter. They may not matter to you, but they matter to other people when we start talking about endorsing things and blah blah blah. So it matters. Those little pennies matter, and I give for that reason. So my daughters may not benefit going there, but people are, and I don't know. I hope I'm making a difference by the things that I do for the college, because I know what a difference it made for me.
Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing why we should support Georgetown College. I appreciate that. So I'm going to add that as the second part of my question. So what's your favorite Georgetown story? And then why should you support Georgetown College? And so Raphael, I'm going to call on you next.
I believe one of the greatest moments is when my cousin actually threw a concert in the quad. He threw a concert in the quad, and Dr. Krause said, "This has never been done before." And when I heard Charlotte speaking, I was like, the fact that Dr. Krause was the president while you were there and while I was there, so it is amazing. He goes into history. I told my father, used to tell me, he said, Bill, you would go down in collegiate history. He said, but no college president has been in the presidency that long. So that's one of the greatest, because we were really breaking barriers. What I enjoyed the most was that men and women who said they'd never gone to class are actually seeing people who of color. And I actually had a classmate who said that he didn't have running water in his parish, or his county rather. We really brought a culture, because many individuals had never left Kentucky before. So we brought a different culture, a different movement, because not only did we actually had a concert in the grill, a concert in the quad, and we were on the radio. My cousin and I, we both were in music. We both were DJs, singing, rapping, doing all of that. But we actually just and then we were actually doing all the parties for the Pikes, the Five Muse. I mean, so it was just really, you were just intertwined in the culture. It was just beautiful, and it was just a rich time, because the internet hadn't taken over yet. The internet hadn't. It was still early 2000s. So they hadn't taken over. It wasn't Snapchat and Instagram yet. It was Facebook only. So it was just a beautiful time, and I'll never forget that, because, as Charlotte was saying, these are times you'll never get again. And that's why we should invest in Georgetown, because it's a monetary gift for unforgettable memories. And even if it's not our kids, you want arrows to be shot to the future for men and women that may not even be connected to us directly, but you want to invest in them. And Georgetown is a rich culture, and I believe it's a great education. It's top tier.
Thank you, Ralph. Michelle.
So 2 things real quick. One, Margaret Reynolds took us on a trip to New York City and DC to compare communication styles between politicians and business people. My first trip to New York, I wound up working 6 years in New York for MetLife, so that was very cool. And then while we were there, I said, Ms. Reynolds, I really want to work on Capitol Hill next summer. Is that possible? And she made that happen. I worked for a congressman. I wasn't even in his district, but he was a graduate of Georgetown. And so that was a great memory. And the second thing is I love, and to this day, my kids make fun of me, love sorority circle up. I go crazy when we do it to this day. So that's a memory it will always be. And I should also correct myself in that my children aren't that shallow, but I do think buildings matter. And I am excited that we do have a plan to some degree of how we're going to deal with that. And I do think obviously contributions make a difference there. And I give to Georgetown because I really do look, we are, as everyone is, limited on what we can give. And I look for things that are on the move and things that are committed to continuous growth and improvement. And I think I look at what Georgetown's doing and it's really impressive. And if you go, well, what is that? I'm not going to take time to share all that, but just take notice. I mean, it's happening. So Olivia, you're a part of that. And I thank you all for all you're doing there for kids on campus.
Thank you, Michelle. Karen.
Hard to nail it down to just 2 success stories or favorite stories. But one obviously would be, I found my tiger mate while I was at Georgetown, 27 years coming up here. And then I guess the second part would be because he's a graduate of Georgetown and I'm a graduate of Georgetown, we've always been givers. And so we wanted to continue the legacy of the education that we received to all students. We never even imagined that one of our 3 children at this point would end up at Georgetown, but thankfully she chose Georgetown as her home and she's happy. And when you have to kind of beg them every once in a while to come home, they found their home. So, but yeah, we give for that reason, but we also give for future generations. We love being able to share in that bond with Abby and share stories. Believe it or not, there are still some professors that were there when we were there she's having now. I think she and her dad enjoy sharing business class stories since they share that in common. And, but yes, giving back to a place that has given so much to us so that we can help those that are ahead of us and will years to come to carry on the legacy for so many that can afford it and cannot afford it.
And to last, but certainly not least, Bruce.
Okay, well, like everyone else said, there are a lot of stories there, but I would say that it's probably one of the funniest stories was, being at Georgetown and, and they had said at first, I was the first player to be drafted out of Georgetown, but it actually came back that I was actually the second player ever drafted out of Georgetown. They did have a player that was drafted back in the 30s, I think, whenever there was a war going on. He got drafted, but he actually never got a chance to play in the NFL. But for me, I became the first player drafted and actually play in the NFL. But draft night in Georgetown, like we said, we was talking about in 1982. So, it wasn't social media, it wasn't on the television and those types of things. But, we were at draft night and, of course, being from Georgetown and being small, a lot of the, students, everybody, was all kind of fired up because there was talk about me, getting drafted. I may get drafted. And, there were NFL scouts that had come to Georgetown that, I know some of those guys are still scouting now. And they said Georgetown was one of the best visits that they ever had because Georgetown being so small and so excited about just any NFL people being there, they treated them like kings, they had breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all the film they wanted, anything they needed, they were just, Georgetown was at their becking hand. But draft night, we were in the dorm, and I was in my room, my roommate and I, waiting on a phone call, and I had a lot of friends, football players, and people who on the campus were outside in the quad there, hanging out, joining to hear what happened. So Tony Dungy, he was at the time coaching with the Kansas City Chiefs. And he had also coached me in that Senior Bowl All-Star game that I was able to play in '82. So he called the dorm phone. So I answered the phone. I'm on the phone, and my roommate's there, like, and I'm going, Chiefs, like, and he's like, Chiefs. So he runs out and goes out in the lobby and out there, and he going out there, Chiefs, and go, everybody's out there going, Chiefs. So I'm on the phone with him, and he's talking to me, and then he goes, Bruce, I got to get off the phone with you now. And I go, what happened? He said, well, Detroit just drafted you. I was like, oh, wow. So he hangs the phone up. So I hang the phone up, and then I get a call. Detroit calls me back. So he comes back on in. And he said, Chiefs, oh man, cut the Chiefs, Lions. And he goes back out there. He goes, hey, no Chiefs, Lions. And they're going like, and one of my teammates was like, wow, did he get traded that quick? And it was just something, but it really was a memorable night. I mean, after that, we had a great time, and all of the campus, they supported me. They had a nice little party and different things like that for me for that draft night and all like that, and it was just it was a memorable time. But I'll tell you that phone call was something else, And then also too, I want to say that. Going to Georgetown, like I said, they didn't have as much diversity there. But as I've come back to Georgetown, and I've tried to come back pretty much every homecoming, I think that Dr. Krause is doing a good job of reaching out and bringing people in. And I can't help but mention Miss Robbie and what she has done. I mean, we as former alum people from Georgetown, and we get in town, and that's probably about 15 or 16 of us that went to school right there in those late 70s, early 80s, that come back to Georgetown every year for homecoming. And we just are stunned at how the diversity, a couple of years ago, it's like we would have never even thought about that Georgetown would have ever had a Black homecoming queen. I think we had a Black homecoming queen a few years back. So we see how things have changed, and Miss Robbie has really been doing some things, and she's been getting us more involved. And I think that more of the African American alums that were there at Georgetown are now starting to see that change. So we're starting to see diversity. We're starting to see those differences, and I know myself, I've done some things for that African American group that we have there that Miss Robbie has going on, but I could see now with some of the changes and the things that are going, I'm going to, dedicate myself now to doing some things there at Georgetown and, supporting financially as well as trying to do some things. I have been doing some recruiting for Georgetown. I've talked to Coach Cronin, the coach, a number of times, and have talked to some players for them, and talked about Georgetown and about getting them there. But I think that it's a time now that I can now start to really feel comfortable about my financial support to Georgetown. And so because that, like I said, Georgetown is near and dear to me. Georgetown, it allowed a lot of things to happen for me in my life. I've had a great, successful career and life, and after football and all the things. And I think it just kind of shaped me. And like I say, the relationships and friendships that I still have that were because of Georgetown, those things mean really a lot to me. And I thank God every day for, the experiences that I've had.
Very good. Thank you, Bruce. And that's all the questions that I have for you all. And I can't say enough how thankful that I am to just be in the very presence of the five of you. I mean, you all said on numerous times that college should be the best years of your life, and you all had that, and I had that in my experience at Georgetown. And I think one thing that allows us to be able to have those great experiences at Georgetown is opportunities to write your name in the history books of Georgetown College. And the 5 of you certainly did that. And I enjoyed hearing your stories and hearing about your paths and what you're doing now. And just thank you so much for continuing to be invested in Georgetown. We will need your support moving forward. And I know we have it. And the leadership of the college is excellent. And we're in a really great place. And I'm happy about the direction that the college is in. So thank you all again. I appreciate it. And there are many ways for our viewers to support Georgetown College. Again, today is Giving Day, and we are so excited. We have almost reached our goal, but we're not there yet. So we still need some more gifts. And you can go to gogc.me/givingday or visit georgetowncollege.edu. Look for the Give button to make your gift to the annual fund. You can always refer a student to Georgetown for admission. You can support our athletics at home or on the road, and follow us at georgetowncollegeathletics.com. Attend alumni events on the road or back here on campus. And with the pandemic, we were halted, but we're excited to get back going again. And alumni will definitely be hearing about our upcoming calendar. Invite President Jones or other campus leaders to speak at your local service club, organization, or church. They would be delighted to do so. And as always, please pray for the college and our leadership teams. But that is all for this edition of Tiger Talks, Legendary Alumni. Again, so thankful for our incredible panelists, and I hope that everyone has a great evening. Take care. Be blessed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.